And welcome to another edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider. I love these episodes, especially after a win, and the Wolverines are back on that winning track, got that bad taste out of their mouths. And I like to say sometimes you got to win ugly, and the Wolverines got one of those types of wins over the Northwestern Wildcats, joining me to break this down. My big fella, I'm always in a good mood when I see my man Tim McCormick. He was an All-American out of Clarkston, Michigan, back in the 1980s, a first-round draft pick in 1984. Played 10 years in the National Basketball Association, and now is one of the best basketball commentators in the land. But I always describe him first as my guy. He's my friend, my man, Timmy Mack, but you know him as Tim McCormick. Tim, how are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. Life is good. And especially if you're a basketball fan of this team, they're so well positioned right now. And imagine 14-4 in year one. And they have a 10-man rotation, Sam. And only Will Cheddar and Namari Burnett played with each other ever. Like there's no familiarity, no incoming chemistry at all. You've got a new coach, new assistants, new style at both ends. So I remember talking to so many Michigan fans with the uncertainty of, my gosh, can they even play in the NCAA tournament? Last year was horrible. And can they get to the NCAA tournament? Too many variables, no way. Well, Sam, I was looking at my calendar. We're 9 days away from the calendar turning to February. Okay. And that's when things really heat up. Selection Sunday is March 16th. That is 53 days from right now. I saw that Joe Lunardi has Michigan as a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament with a chance to really rise up. They're one game out of first place. Michigan State's won 11 straight, but I have a feeling that they're going to get knocked off at Rutgers this week. And so you
Wow.
beat Purdue and things take care of themselves. Michigan is in a great position.
Wow, that's an interesting call. I'm waiting for a third score to develop for the Scarlet Knights. I mean, Ace Bailey and Dylan get it done for the Scarlet Knights. But who gets it done for someone outside of those? Who we'll see. I mean, that's neither here nor there. We'll see for the Rutgers Michigan State matchup. But let's talk about these Wolverines, because with these Wolverines, it was going to be interesting to see how they bounce back from the disappointment from losing at Williams and Arena, losing at the barn. Because to me, it was a textbook example of, in the Big Ten, anyone can beat you, right? I mean, it's a league where, if on any given night, if you aren't playing your A game, someone can rise up, especially a team like Northwestern that's going to make you play at your pace. We know Michigan likes to get up and down. And I found myself watching this game, Tim, like, man, wait, this is not, Michigan's not playing at their, we're playing at Northwest. We're playing at Northwestern's pace. I say we. Michigan's playing at Northwestern's pace in this game, Tim. And this is how Northwestern gets you to play. And it suddenly you're looking up at the end of this game and it's a nip tuck affair.
Yeah. Also, I apologize that my dog was barking. You mentioned Michigan State, and then it just kind of triggers him into barking. So don't worry about it. Yeah, the point is really a good one about the Minnesota game and about the Northwestern game. Both of those teams extremely physical and tough, and they play hard. And I think about the teams that Michigan has really thrived against, talking about Iowa and USC and UCLA and Washington, teams that are more finesse, more open court. I know Mick Cronin used to talk about tough defense. He doesn't talk about that as much anymore. But Northwestern was very, very physical. I attended the game and I absolutely loved it. I had so much fun. The crowd was fantastic, very competitive. what Chris Collins and Northwestern does makes sense to me. Like it fits their personnel. They can't run up and down and be finesse against anybody because they lack some of the talent. They're unselfish. They pass well, and it was a really, really good game. And remember, they've already beaten Illinois and Maryland and Indiana. So this is a team that's capable. And anybody that says, "Oh, it's Northwestern, it's not a good win," no, don't believe that for a second. I also thought Michigan looked a little bit tired, and their schedule has been pretty brutal. Having 4 days off will really help things out a great deal. But yeah, the Michigan Northwestern game was very entertaining to me, and I was so happy that they won.
So on those nights or days where you just don't have it. You just don't have it offensively. And we talked about this in the Minnesota game. It is vitally important that the constants are constant. In the Minnesota game, the constants weren't constant, Tim. Uh, Case in point, Michigan did not guard well in the second half and overtime of that game. They did not stay in front of their guys. That manifest physically. They just got overpowered going to the rim. Lukai Patterson, Matt Mitchell. I thought the guards just did not do a job physically in that game. I was pleased. I was much more pleased with the job that the guys did physically, defensively in this game. It was a better performance on a day where, offensively, they still were not in their bag, but they did the other things better. But what I was most pleased by was, hey, on a day where most of the players weren't going well offensively, you had a big fella, and you had to be pleased by this, Tim McCormick, to say, okay, y'all, you are doing it. Give me the ball, because I got you. Vlad Goldin said, feed me the rock. I'm going to carry you guys the rest of the way. Vlad Goldin had it going.
Yeah, well said. And you had mentioned Minnesota again. I always feel like when you have poor energy as a team, it shows up on the defensive end. And those straight line drives are unacceptable. And some of the players that maybe we say, you know what, they do a pretty darn good job on the defensive end. It's not their nature, but they've bought into the system. And sometimes when you get distracted, I'm talking about Roddy Gale, I'm talking about Trey Donaldson, Namari Burnett, like those guys, they had some slippage in their containment defense against Minnesota, and it showed up with those layups. Against Northwestern, they were committed. It was a solid defensive effort. And Vlad Goldin is really having a special year. Was he 9 for 16? He rebounded really well. I'm starting to think he's an exceptional three-point shooter if he can step into it. He's leading the Big Ten in three-point shooting. Okay, did you ever think that could happen? If you would have said Vlad Goldin, what's his number at this year? He's 65%. And so if you would have told me that at this point in the year he's shooting around 65%, I'd say, oh, great, he's 2 for 3 or something like that. His shots don't hit the rim, do they? They go straight in. And I trust him at the free throw line. There have been a lot of times I look at his free throw percentages that, gosh, it seems like every time he steps to the line with clutch free throws, he makes them both, and they look perfect. He's a very reliable player in a lot of ways. He's blocking 2 shots a game. And I think that playing with Danny Wolf is like a role model or a mentor about stepping outside your game. Do something a little bit different. You can see Vlad Goldin trying some things he's never really done before. And if you would have said, Danny Wolf's going to give you 0 buckets today, okay, and all of the other supporting cast other than Goldin is going to shoot like 5 or 6 for 30. That's a loss, Sam. And somehow they won the game. So kudos to them.
Yeah, Vlad and Vlad's effort was very balanced. I mean, it wasn't like, he was, he gave you a bunch of points. He had a second half explosion, or it was all loaded in the first half. I mean, he came out the gate. Give it to me. I got you. Second half, he was ready. I found myself, there was a stretch even a little bit later in the game where I felt like he wasn't getting enough touches as they came down the floor. Now, granted, there was a sequence, and I should have been keeping some notes. It was a stretch there late in regulation where they came down and they wound up scoring, but Vlad went like a couple of sequences where he didn't touch the ball, and I found myself getting frustrated, Tim, because I felt like he had a hot hand, and I know normally I'm thinking about perimeter players when they have a hot hand, make sure they get touches, but I feel like that goes for a big fella too. Make sure the hot hand, no matter where that hot hand is, gets at least a touch of the ball, even if he's not getting a shot. Touch it to make sure that hand stays hot, even if he doesn't get a shot up. It helps keep rhythm. So when you do go back to him, he's still in the rhythm. That's just how I feel about it. Fortunately, he stayed hot. So when he did get the ball back, it still went in. But I just, for me, it's one of those deals where Vlad has been such a consistent threat. The Northwestern game notwithstanding, that as we get into another discussion here in a few minutes, that this, if you look at MVPs of the team, we've been talking a lot about Danny Wolf. Man, the way Vlad's been going of late, this is something that Namari said after the game. Namari called Vlad the team MVP.
Doesn't surprise me. And isn't it nice to have two
No,
MVPs?
he didn't say team MVP. He said the team's best player. He said he's our best player.
So I don't know if that's true because the game before Danny Wolf was 8 for 10 from the field, and we've seen him explode on the West Coast. They both can take over games, and when they both play well together, which is a lot of the time, this is a team that has the potential to advance deep in the NCAA tournament because not many people can offer a defense to deal with both of them. I think that Danny Wolf looked really fatigued the other day, and maybe because the amount of energy that it takes to be a go-to guy, to be at the top of a scouting report, it's epic. It's a huge challenge that every team scouting report is talking about your go-to moves and your secondary moves, and he makes a move and the defense is already there, and there's a lot going on. Remember, he was playing against Brown last year in the Ivy League. Okay, he was playing against 6'5" opposing centers. Now all of a sudden, he's playing against premier athletes that move really well and they're physical and they're tough. He's playing against coaches that are among the best in the whole nation. And so I think that Danny Wolf had one off game, and I think Michigan has two MVPs.
Well, and look, kudos to Danny Wolf. He didn't just stand around. He went out there. He had 13 boards, Tim.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Sam, if next time you see me, if you give me a magic lamp like Aladdin, and I rub it and the genie comes out and he gives me three wishes. The first one that I would ask for is for Michigan and Dusty May to go old school with Vlad and Danny 10 times total the whole game. Start your possession with one of them standing on the low block, throw it inside, make it really easy, and then let that double team come because both of them are just, I think, extraordinary post passers. They're always on the move. I think it would simplify the game for them. And I know that analytics are a big part of Dusty May's coaching, but I would be curious because I think that it would make Michigan really strong to have that established post game.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you this because he was 0 for 7, and there's been a lot of talk about how teams are defending the two big lineup, how teams are defending the two-man game. So the pick and roll, and specifically, you talked about that in the last episode, and you were saying, I know you were saying that he was going to get a lot more open threes, but specifically with how they defend Danny, or whether it's when Vlad is out of the lineup or in the lineup or out of the lineup, you know, when it comes to his offense, are there things that you would like to see him do more of, whether it's setting up on more in the low post? I mean, what are some of the offensive things you would like to see him accentuate more here in the coming games?
So whoever has the size mismatch, either Golden or Wolf, takes their man right to the block. You can use a cross screen, you can use a diagonal, you can go old school and just give them a touch, because I think those guys, the Charles Barkley move where you just back your way in and you basically force help defenders to come. If you get somebody to double the low post, that's the best offense in all of basketball, because on the weak side, you're 4-on-3. And so it's a great way to generate shots. And they may have to go in that direction as defenses get a little bit more sophisticated, as they get more tape on what works and what doesn't. And I can tell you with Purdue, they're going to be really physical, and it's going to be hard to get open shots against that team. Going inside would be a big advantage.
So there was a little bit of a mini debate breaking out amongst Michigan fans, saying that one thing that is open for Michigan is mid-range shots. Now, that's something that teams are encouraging you to take. They're leaving that open, so to speak. Do you think that is something that should be exploited? Taking more mid-range shots. Do you think that's something that should be taken advantage of?
Absolutely. Have you been watching Cade Cunningham? Cade Cunningham is attacking the mid-range game. He shoots little floaters, little hook shots. Everything in basketball evolves over time. And once somebody has a strategy that works, then everybody starts to employ it. And I think Trey Donaldson would benefit so much from driving to the lane. I call it the kill zone, that little 6 to 8 foot area right inside the foul line below the basket. It's an easy shot to make. You just put it up there. If you have a soft touch, the ball is going to bounce on the rim and go in. I would love to see Roddy Gale get a couple of mid-range shots every game. It's the easiest shot in basketball. And for those of you that watch Northwestern, I'm sure you thought this multiple times, because nowadays the referees do not give you charges. You cannot get a charge unless it's so obvious. But what the defense can do, principle of verticality, you go straight up, you can have the hardest contact. It's no foul if you go straight up. And it's hard to take that hit and still finish over these outstretched hands. As time goes on, teams are going to adjust. Before that contact happens, just take the little floater and then go down. You can blow kisses to the crowd. You're a hero. Like it's a lot easier to make that mid-range than to try to finish through contact.
Yeah, you know what? Of the guys on the team right now, I would say I see Trey take advantage of it a little bit. He seems like he has a little bit of a float game. I don't really see any other guy on the squad display much of it. Have you seen? I'm trying to think.
So I think that he's not playing much, but in early practices, I thought that LJ Kaysen he's got a lot of game. He's
Okay.
got that if he needs it. But for a guy like Reuben Jones that doesn't have confidence in his 3-point shooting and he's not getting a lot of looks, if he can attack closeouts, 1-2 dribbles and explore that little shot, I think that would work really well for him. By the way, Reuben Jones, 8 points, really good defense. That was a big impact. He made 2 clutch free throws. That's going to help his confidence. And a prediction for you, I think that Ruben is going to play a major role against Purdue, because as a long guard, I think he can give Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer a lot of problems.
Length and athleticism against those guys. Yes, I agree. Length and athleticism against Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer can be nemesis enforcers for you G.I. Joe fans out there. You young fans or older fans who are kids in the G.I. Joe era will get what I'm talking about. So,
hey Sam, I'm having an issue. I'm having a hard time figuring something out. So I'm going to go to you. Who is the Big Ten's player of the year so far?
Ooh, Big Ten player of the year. A lot of times it goes to the leading scorer. Leading scorer in the Big Ten right now is, if I'm looking it up, it's a tie between Nick Martinelli and Ace Bailey.
Dylan Harper is there too. You've got 2 freshmen from Rutgers. You've got a couple of Northwestern players. And I find it hard to believe that Bryce Williams at Nebraska could be considered an MVP candidate. Sometimes it goes to the best player on the best team. Right now, Michigan State's in first place. Could you give it to Jay Nakins at 11 points per game? I don't think so. And the reason I bring it up, twofold. Number one, I've never seen the Big Ten without a dominant player at this time of the year. You know, last year it was Zach Edey, and everybody knew it. You know, you can go back to Luka Garza. Like every year there's somebody. And so it kind of made me think, why couldn't a Michigan player creep into that conversation? And as an argument, first of all, Michigan would have to be in first or second place at the end of the year. Vlad's numbers are 16-6, 65% from the field, 65% from 3, 2 blocks per game. I mean, once again, I don't even know if he would be the best candidate from the team, because it could be Danny Wolf. Trey Kaufman-Red is having a really good year. He might be the most improved player, but Sam, I don't know. And I see you studying it there. Do you
I'm looking at it. I would say Trey Kaufman-Red's numbers are better right now. And they're the number 11 team in the country at the moment. Trey Kaufman-Red, I would say, would probably be the one that has the better case, Tim, at the moment, if I had to choose one. But I wouldn't say anyone would be a shoo-in. It's TBD.
Can you imagine if Trey Kaufman-Red was your MVP of the Big Ten?
Right, that's why I say you can't. Yeah. I don't think you can. It's way too early, because there is no dominant guy.
Yeah,
you can't. I would say that Michigan's guys, and don't rule out Danny Wolf, because I would say the most buzzworthy guy is Danny Wolf.
Yeah,
the guy that nationally, of all the guys that we're talking about, you know, the guy who coaches and scouts and the unicorn and Givney and draft boards, Danny Wolf, Tim. I mean, everybody's been buzzing about Danny Wolf. Now, he had the 0 for 7. That maybe has dampened things a little bit. But, man, before this past week, before the Minnesota loss and the Northwestern game, that definitely has been an anchor. But, Tim, everybody in the Big Ten was talking about Danny Wolf. I would say before that, we could very well have been talking about Danny Wolf maybe being the favorite, were it not for what this week did to his case.
Yeah, it's just one game, and people will forget. The NBA loves him. NBA scouts are all over Vlad too. He's looked at as a second-round draft pick. Michigan has plenty of star power. I think they're the only team in the Big Ten that has 5 players averaging double figures. And another guy that we should bring up, I'm not convinced that Roddy Gale is 100%. He was pretty gutty. He made big free throws. I think he helped send the game into overtime against Northwestern. If I look at all of Michigan's players, if I'm looking for somebody that's a difference maker, that if Michigan is to win the Big Ten championship this year, they desperately need Roddy Gale between 10 and 15 points every game. And I think he's capable of that. And he just doesn't look 100% to me.
Yeah. I liked how in control he was at the end of the game. One of the ways that I really measure that is in his turnover number or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
And you look up and Roddy Gale, did you see his turnover number in this game, Tim?
It was 0, wasn't it?
It was 0. It was 0. Thank you very much.
All of a sudden, we don't even talk about turnovers. They had 11 turnovers against Northwestern. That problem has been solved. We're good to go.
Clapping it up. Clapping it up. That was outstanding. Outstanding. They were clutch at the free throw line down the stretch as well. That was really good to see. So they did the things at winning time in a tight game that they needed to do in overtime. Speaking of overtime, Tim, and I really wanted to get to this before we get to talking about Purdue and previewing that game. So the reason it went to overtime, and you talked me through this as a big fella, because I think this had a lot to do with Chris Collins too. He called Vlad Goldin an actor. He can be. Vlad can be an actor. He can do some theatrics, and that's part of the gamesmanship. I don't have any problem with gamesmanship when it's my guy. But he did get kicked in the junk, and Northwestern's player got ejected, and rightfully so. That was legit. But then at the end, Vlad gets a rebound. All right. And he keeps the ball high. And I remember you saying a couple of episodes ago that one of the coaching points that, and this had to do with when he's in the post and he's making the move, and you were saying that Dusty was telling him, hey, stop bringing the ball down. And this had to do with about his offense, but this could go with rebounding and just keep the ball high. So when he got the rebound, Tim, he kept the ball high and he turned. He's establishing position and he's keeping the ball high. And in the midst of keeping the ball high, I guess one of the Northwestern players' face got grazed. I won't even call it hit. I'll call it grazed. And they called him for an offensive foul. So, Tim, I got a problem with this. What rights does Vlad have? Why is this a foul? What should he have done? Why is this a flagrant foul? What is Vlad supposed to do? Because I asked Dusty about it. Originally, Dusty had no comment. But when I asked him after that, I said, Dusty, coach me. Tell me what you would coach him to do differently. And he said, well, Sam, I don't know. I thought he did something more flagrant than that. I'm not sure I wouldn't have coached him to do anything differently. So, Tim, you being a big fella, having been in that position, you tell me what you would have done differently in that situation.
So I've been called for flagrant fouls, thinking this is my space. Get away from me. The terminology that referees use in a broadcast is, was it a basketball move? I think they say this is not a basketball move. What I learned to do is when I've got the ball, I always said, I'm going to make a big circle, right? And I could still hit somebody, but making a circle, this is my space right here. I'm not taking it up. I'm not taking it out. So I think that if Vlad would have taken the ball and made a circle, he would not have gotten a technical foul, because that's more of a basketball move. That was a huge play, Sam, because they got 2 free throws and the ball. Michigan was in control of it, had the rebound, and it could have completely changed the complexion of the game. the Northwestern bench, and I had a really good look at it through much of the game. They were very frustrated. Chris Collins, I think, lost control a little bit. He was very, very adamant that he was not getting the right whistle. And I saw his staff and his players, they were all up jumping. And so a coach can send a message to everybody, the referees, his players, the opponents, that he doesn't like something. I'm a huge Chris Collins fan, and he was really mad because every one of those plays happened right in front of his bench.
So what's your opinion on working refs? Um, I'm not. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong way. There's just the coach's way. Dusty's way is, hey man, I'm, coach ref the game. I'm I'm not gonna be all over refs. Make your calls, and I'm gonna on to the next deal. You got the Mick Cronin way, where he's like, ah. You got the and now Mick Cronin is just a complainer without any real credentials of championship substance to back it up. He has 500 wins, but he doesn't have any championships to back it up. Dan Hurley has championships to back it up. Dan Hurley walked on the court and said, I'm the best coach in the country. Don't turn away from me when I'm talking to you. Listen to what I have to say. So he's working the ref, right?
Yeah.
To get his calls. Is there a way that you think, in your experience as a player and a commentator, that you think is most effective when it comes to affecting refs and getting calls?
Yeah. I think that coaches can affect referees. And I grew up as a player in an era where when you went to Mackey Arena, you knew exactly where Gene Cady was. Judd Heathcote, funny guy, great guy, but he could get pretty salty. Bobby Knight, I mean, I saw him come right in our locker room to chew out Bill Frieder. Like we couldn't believe that Bobby Knight was in our locker room. Um, I think that a really stern coach, Tom Izzo today, he's intimidating. I don't care what anybody says that there are certain referees that give him calls. So I think there's a place for it. I think that a lot more of the referees today are kind of tough guys, and they don't stand for it, and they're not afraid to walk away. But there's a place for it, and I agree with Dan Hurley that he's the best coach in the game right now.
He literally said, I'm the best coach in the country.
I like that, actually. That was good.
Oh my God. All right, Tim. Well, one of the best coaches in the country is who Michigan is about to square off against. I know you have a ton of respect for Matt Painter. I certainly do. It doesn't matter the team. Every year he has one of the best teams in the country in Michigan, heading to Mackey to take on another one again. So when Michigan heads to West Lafayette this Friday, 8 o'clock, the number 11 Purdue Boilermakers give us an idea of what version of the Boilermakers the Wolverines will be squaring off against this time.
We will learn a lot about this Michigan team. Remember, their last two games, Minnesota and Northwestern, against really physical teams. Purdue will be the same way. Purdue back-to-back champs. There's no Zach Edey. Right now, Zach Edey, for those that haven't followed, like he's the starting center for the Memphis Grizzlies, and he's all NBA rookie. So he's sorely missed. I think Purdue relies really heavily on just three guys to score. Trey Kaufman-Renn is their top scorer. I like him a lot. Top rebounder, one of the most improved players in the league. 6'9", 230. He does a lot out there. And I think that Michigan's big guys are a great matchup against him. Braden Smith and Clarkston guard Fletcher Lawyer, the little brother of Foster Lawyer, best backcourt in the Big Ten to me. They're smart, deadly shooters. After those two, I don't worry about anybody on Purdue's team hurting me. And so Michigan's got more weapons. Purdue, with a really disappointing and shocking loss, They were up 16 at home to, I consider, a really mediocre Ohio State team, and they just collapsed. I think that the Buckeyes made 8 of 12 from 3 in the second half to shock everybody. So we're going to get the angry version of Purdue, and it's a Friday night showcase game. If Michigan goes in there and wins, it changes my whole trajectory for this program and this team this year. If they win, remember, I think Michigan State will lose at Rutgers. You're talking about Michigan being, as February approaches, tied for first place.
Yeah, man. My co-host on the morning show on WTKA, Ira, he asked me, he said, which would you rather face, Purdue after they beat Ohio State or after they lost Ohio State? I said, after they beat Ohio State. Man, this Purdue team is going to be, they're going to be frothing at the mouth. Oh, this is the worst Purdue that you're going to face, because this is, oh my, man, Payne is that absolutely going to have them ready to play now.
Well, the one thing that I would say is that 8 of Michigan's top 10 players are brand new. They've never played at Mackey Arena with a sellout crowd. They're going to experience something they've never seen, because everybody talks about Assembly Hall and the Kohl Center. No, Mackey Arena is the real deal. That's the loudest college arena I've ever played at.
Yeah, what was up with their? I didn't see the Ohio State game to know how Micah Parrish was getting such good looks from 3. But he was on fire, clearly. So that I'm gonna go and pull that game up to take a look, because that will be very interesting to really get a bead on. Because Michigan, if nothing else, we know they got some shooters. Is this a game where a Namari Burnett can go off? I think Namari's due. This has been a mini lull, if you will, for Namari for of late. So is he gonna bust out in this game? I think Michigan shooters have been fairly cold here for the last
streaky. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So I think this is, and no better time than right now to have a good shooting game. Hopefully they can do that on the road down in West Lafayette. We'll see if they're able to do it against the Boilermakers. Timmy Mack, it is always a pleasure, my friend, to get it done with you. I'm looking forward to hopefully talking about a win over a ranked opponent. If the Wolverines can get this one done, we're going to be talking about the Wolverines, I think, being back up atop the standings. Because if you're right, or at least tied, because if you're right, that means the Spartans will have lost to the Scarlet Knights. So we'll see. All right. Until the next time, my friend, it is always a pleasure to be with you. We'll see you guys next time on the next edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider.